I'll never forget the morning of my wedding. Most brides imagine waking up with butterflies, feeling cherished, thinking about how their father will beam with pride as he takes their arm to walk them down the aisle. But me? I woke up to a text message that shattered me in a way I still can't describe. It was from my father. His exact words were, "Harper, I'm sorry, but I can't make it today. Madison's birthday is more important. She needs me there." I remember staring at the screen, my phone trembling in my hands. My dad, my own father, was telling me, without hesitation, that my younger sister's 21st birthday party was more important than walking me down the aisle on the most significant day of my life. And what cut deeper than the words themselves was that I wasn't even surprised. My name is Harper Lane. I'm 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my father, Charles, has chosen my little sister Madison over me. Let me paint the picture. Charles is the kind of man who believes showing favoritism isn't a flaw, it's a right. He always said he treated us differently because we were different. But the truth was obvious. Madison was his princess. She was spoiled with gifts, attention, and endless praise. Every soccer game, every school play, every milestone in her life. Dad was there, front row, clapping louder than anyone. And me? I was the strong one, the one who didn't need him. The one who, as he often put it, could figure it out. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't unloved. My mother, Elaine, tried her best to balance things, but she was a peacekeeper, not a fighter. She'd smooth over his decisions with quiet words like, "You know how your father is," or "Don't take it personally, Harper." And then there was Grandpa Henry, my father's father, 78 years old, retired Navy, sharp as ever. He was the only man in my family who looked at me like I was just as precious as Madison. When my dad missed my high school graduation to take Madison to a cheer competition, it was Grandpa Henry who sat in the crowd, whistling and waving his hands when I walked across the stage. When Dad skipped my college move-in day, Grandpa was the one carrying boxes and joking about how these dorm stairs should count as cardio. So on my wedding day, I had hoped, just hoped, that maybe this time would be different, that maybe my father would finally choose me. But instead, as I sat in a dressing gown with my hair half-pinned and my makeup barely started, I felt that familiar sting of being second place. The message on my phone wasn't just about him skipping a tradition. It was confirmation of what I'd always known. In his world, Madison would always come first. I remember dropping the phone onto the vanity table, my vision blurry with tears. My best friend, Claire, who was helping me get ready, rushed over. "Harper, what happened?" she asked, panic in her voice. I could barely force the words out. "He's not coming. He's going to Madison's birthday instead." Her jaw dropped. "You're kidding. On your wedding day?" I shook my head, tears spilling freely now. He didn't even hesitate. He just chose her. Like he always does, Claire wrapped her arms around me, but her comfort couldn't erase the hollow ache in my chest, and that's when a thought hit me like lightning. Who's going to walk me down the aisle now? For a bride, that moment, taking those steps arm in arm with your father, is supposed to be a memory you hold forever. It's a tradition, yes, but also a symbol. It's supposed to say, "I'm here. I raised you, and I'm proud to let you go start your life." But mine had just been ripped away. I tried to breathe, to steady myself, but then the humiliation sank in. How would I explain this to the guests, to my soon-to-be husband's family? Would they whisper that my own father didn't care enough to be there? And yet, something inside me went quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even respond to the text. Instead, I stared at myself in the mirror, red-eyed, broken, but still standing, and thought, fine. If he doesn't want the honor, I'll give it to someone who deserves it. I didn't know it then, but that decision would change everything. Because when my father eventually saw the photos of who stood proudly beside me on that walk down the aisle, he lost his mind. And for once in my life, I didn't care. When I tell people my dad didn't walk me down the aisle, some assume we must have had a terrible relationship all along. They picture a father who abandoned his family, or maybe a man who was never in the picture to begin with. But that wasn't the case. My father, Charles Lane, was always physically present. He worked a steady job in construction. He came home for dinner. He mowed the lawn on Saturdays. To the outside world, he looked like a good, hard-working family man. But when it came to showing up for me, the truth was harder to swallow. I was the oldest. I carried responsibility from the moment Madison was born. At just 7 years old, I was changing diapers and making bottles while my mom rested. And I didn't mind. It made me feel useful, even proud. But over time, I noticed something. The more I helped, the more invisible I became. Dad adored Madison. She was his sunshine, his princess, his baby girl. He showered her with compliments and called her my little angel. He posted pictures of her dance recitals, bought her expensive birthday gifts, and never missed a single event. Me? I was the independent one. When I brought home good grades, Dad would nod and say, "That's great, Harper. I knew you could handle it when I played soccer." He rarely came to games saying, "You're tough." You don't need me cheering. It wasn't cruelty, it was dismissal. My mom, Elaine, knew it hurt me, but she rarely confronted him. She was soft-spoken, gentle, and conflict made her uncomfortable. Instead, she'd pat my hand and say things like, "Your father loves you in his own way," or "Don't let it get to you, Harper." But the words didn't erase the sting. The only person who consistently made me feel valued was my grandfather, Henry, my dad's father. He lived just a few blocks away and made it his mission to fill the gap my father left behind. When I was 12 and made the honor roll, Grandpa showed up at the school assembly with balloons. When I turned 16, he taught me to drive, his voice calm and steady while I nervously clutched the wheel. At 18, when Dad skipped my high school graduation to attend one of Madison's cheer competitions, Grandpa was there in the front row, waving his cane in the air and shouting my name so loud the whole auditorium laughed. To me, Grandpa wasn't just a grandparent. He was the closest thing I had to a father figure. Still, I never gave up, hoping my real dad would change. And when I got engaged to my fiancé, Daniel, that hope came rushing back. Daniel is everything I ever dreamed of in a partner. He's steady, kind, and endlessly patient. From the moment we met, he saw me, not the strong one, not the afterthought, just me. When he proposed, I knew without a doubt I was saying yes to the man who truly loved me for who I was. As we started planning the wedding, my heart kept circling back to one vision, walking down the aisle with my father. I wanted it so badly, not just for tradition, but for closure, for proof that maybe, just maybe, he could finally put me first. At the rehearsal dinner, I tested the waters. Dad sat across the table, fiddling with his phone as I smiled at him. "Dad," I said, "tomorrow's going to be unforgettable." He looked up briefly and smirked. "Well, don't be mad if I can't stay long." "You know Madison's party is important too." The air went out of the room. My mom shifted uncomfortably. Madison giggled, twirling her hair like it was a joke. And me? I forced a laugh, though my stomach dropped. "Right," I said softly. "Of course." That night, lying awake in bed, I convinced myself he was bluffing. He wouldn't actually leave me hanging on my wedding day, not when it mattered most. But deep down, a part of me knew, because every major milestone in my life had been marked by his absence. My first championship soccer game, my college move-in day, even the night I got engaged. When we called to share the news, he cut me off mid-sentence to say, "That's great, Harper. Hold on, Madison's on the other line." Still, I clung to hope that maybe this one time he would see me, that he would look at me in my wedding dress, tears in his eyes, and realize I was worth showing up for. The morning of the wedding, I woke up buzzing with nerves, but also excitement. My bridesmaids bustled around, curling hair and painting nails, and my mom kept adjusting her pearl necklace, smiling nervously. I sat in front of the mirror, imagining that moment, his hand on my arm, his voice whispering, "I'm proud of you, Harper." For a fleeting second, I let myself believe it would happen. I didn't know that only hours later, a single text message would shatter that dream, leaving me to make the most important decision of my life. The morning of my wedding was supposed to be magical. The house was alive with the smell of fresh flowers, the sound of laughter from my bridesmaids, and the soft hum of music playing in the background. My white dress hung carefully on the door, glowing in the light that streamed through the window. Everything should have felt perfect. But then my phone buzzed. I reached for it with a smile, assuming it was Daniel checking in or one of my cousins asking for directions to the venue. Instead, my father's name flashed across the screen. I opened the message, and the words nearly made me drop the phone. "Harper, I'm sorry, but I can't make it today. Madison's birthday is more important. She needs me there. You'll be fine without me." At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. I stared at the text, waiting for a follow-up message with a smiley face or a, "Just kidding, of course I'll be there." But the silence stretched, and the truth sank in like a stone. He wasn't coming. On my wedding day, the one day I had begged the universe to let me be his priority, he chose Madison. Again. My throat closed up. My hands trembled. I couldn't breathe. My reflection in the mirror blurred as hot tears slid down my cheeks, smudging the careful work of the makeup artist. "Harper, what's wrong?" my bridesmaid and best friend Claire asked, rushing over. I held out the phone with shaking fingers. She read the message, and her face turned red with anger. "You've got to be kidding me," she hissed. "He's skipping your wedding? For Madison's birthday party?" Nodded, unable to speak. My chest ached with humiliation, pain, and fury all tangled together. At that exact moment, my mom, Elaine, walked into the room holding a pearl bracelet. She froze when she saw my face. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Claire shoved the phone toward her. "Charles bailed. He says he can't come because of Madison." My mother's shoulders sagged. She pressed a hand to her forehead, whispering, "Oh, Charles." "Mom," I choked out, "he picked her again." "On my wedding day, how could he?" She stepped toward me, reaching for my hand. "Harper, I know it hurts. Your father, he just doesn't think things through. That's not an excuse." My voice cracked. "He's never there for me." Never. And now, when it finally matters most, he chooses her. The room went quiet. My bridesmaids exchanged awkward glances, clearly unsure of what to say. My mother's eyes shimmered with guilt, but she didn't defend him further. She knew the truth, as well as I did. The whispers started among the guests when word spread that my father wasn't coming. Some of them sent me texts, confused or sympathetic, asking who would walk me down the aisle. The thought of facing hundreds of people, all aware that my own father had abandoned me, made me sick to my stomach. And then, as if to twist the knife, Madison posted on Instagram. A bright photo of her standing next to Dad, both of them grinning at her birthday party. The caption read, "Best birthday ever with my favorite guy in the world." The comments poured in. People gushing about how lucky she was, how sweet it was that her dad was with her. I could barely look at it without shaking. I shoved the phone away, clenching my fists. "This is humiliating," I whispered. "Everyone is going to think I wasn't worth his time." Claire knelt beside me, gripping my hand. "Harper, listen to me. You don't need him. You are stronger than this. If he can't see your worth, that's on him, not you." Her words were kind, but the hole in my heart only grew deeper. I turned to my mom again, desperate. "What am I supposed to do now? Who's going to walk me down the aisle?" People are already whispering. Elaine's lips trembled. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart. You don't have to go through this alone." But deep down, I knew she couldn't fix this. Only one person was supposed to have that role, and he had thrown it away without a second thought. I sat there, staring at my reflection, the dress, the makeup, the veil, and none of it felt beautiful anymore. It felt hollow, like a costume covering up a broken heart. Yet beneath the pain, something else began to stir. Resolve. I wiped my eyes, straightened my back, and took a shaky breath. "If Dad doesn't want the honor," I said quietly, "then I'll give it to someone who does." The room fell silent. My bridesmaids leaned in, waiting. My mom blinked at me, confused. "Harper, who do you mean?" I looked at her through the mirror, my eyes still wet but my voice steadier than before. "You'll see," I said, "but I won't let him ruin this for me." Not today. It was the first time in my life I refused to accept being second place. And though I didn't realize it yet, the decision I was about to make would not only save my wedding day, it would shake my father to his core when he finally saw the photos. When my father's text sank in and the shock began to fade, I realized I had a choice to make. I could sit there, broken, letting his absence define my wedding day. Or I could take control of the moment and rewrite the story for myself. The tears on my cheeks dried as a new kind of clarity set in. I wasn't going to let Charles Lane, my own father, ruin the most important day of my life. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were still red and puffy, but behind them I saw a spark, a flicker of resolve. If he doesn't want the honor, I whispered to myself, then I'll give it to someone who does. The words rolled off my tongue with surprising strength, and for the first time that morning, I felt a sense of power. My mom blinked at me nervously, clutching the pearl bracelet she'd brought to give me. "Sweetheart, who do you mean?" I turned to her slowly, my heart steadying as the answer became obvious. Grandpa. For a second, silence filled the room. My bridesmaids exchanged quick glances, and then Claire, my best friend, grinned through tears. "Yes," she said firmly. "Yes, Harper." "That's perfect." Mom's eyes softened. She didn't argue, didn't try to defend Dad this time. Instead, she nodded slowly, almost with relief. Henry would be honored. More than honored. That was all I needed. I slipped out of the dressing room, my dress still gathered around me to keep from dragging on the floor, and found Grandpa Henry sitting in the foyer. He was dressed in his best navy blue suit, leaning on his cane, chatting warmly with one of my cousins. When he saw me approach, he stood up straighter, concern immediately clouding his face. "Harper, sweetheart, what's wrong? You look upset." My throat tightened again, but this time with emotion I could barely contain. "Grandpa," I said softly, "Dad's not coming. He chose Madison's birthday instead." His jaw clenched. For a moment, the kind sparkle in his eyes hardened with disappointment, not at me, but at his son. "That boy," he muttered under his breath. "He's been blind for too long." I swallowed hard, then lifted my chin. I don't want to let this ruin today. But I can't walk down that aisle alone. My voice wavered. Would you do it? Would you walk me down the aisle?" For a split second, his face went blank with shock. Then his eyes glistened, and his lips curved into the most heartfelt smile I had ever seen. "Sweetheart," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I've been waiting for this moment since the day you were born. It would be the greatest honor of my life." My chest cracked wide open. Relief, love, and gratitude poured in all at once. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from joy. He reached out his wrinkled hand, steady and strong, and I placed mine in his. In that touch, I felt decades of love, support, and presence. This was the man who had always shown up for me, time after time, when my father hadn't. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered. "Thank you for never letting me down." He squeezed my hand. "Harper, I'll be right there with you every step. And I want you to hold your head high. Today is about you and the man you're marrying. Don't let anyone steal that joy." I smiled through tears. "I won't." Word spread quickly among the bridal party. Whispers turned into approval, smiles, and even a few tears. Everyone seemed to recognize the beauty in the choice. It wasn't just about filling a spot. It was about honoring the person who had truly earned it. Claire leaned in as I prepared to head back upstairs. "This will be even better than if your dad had done it. Trust me. Everyone will see how much love is in that moment." She was right. I could feel it. Back in the bridal suite, my mom helped me fasten the pearl bracelet around my wrist. Her hands trembled, but her eyes held a softness I hadn't seen in years. "You're stronger than I ever was," she whispered. "And you're right. Your father doesn't deserve that walk, but Henry does." More than anyone, I hugged her tightly, letting her words settle in my heart. The time was drawing near. The music was being set, the guests were being seated, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. But instead of despair, I felt pride. When I thought about stepping onto that aisle, I no longer saw emptiness. I saw Grandpa Henry standing tall, his arm linked with mine, guiding me toward the man I loved. This wasn't just a solution, it was a transformation. I hadn't just replaced my father. I had chosen love over disappointment, presence over absence, strength over weakness. And though I didn't know it then, the sight of me walking arm in arm with Henry would set off a reaction in my father that he would never recover from. The moment arrived, the church bells chimed softly outside, signaling to the guests that the ceremony was about to begin. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Friends and family shifted in their seats, craning their necks for the first glimpse of the bride. I stood just outside the heavy wooden doors, my arm linked firmly with Grandpa Henry's. His grip was steady, his presence grounding me. For the first time that morning, I felt calm. Not because everything had gone perfectly. It hadn't. But because I knew I wasn't walking alone. The music began. The familiar chords of Canon in D filled the air. The guests rose to their feet. The doors opened, and there we were. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I stepped forward. Not because of the dress, though it shimmered under the light. Not even because of my veil, trailing gracefully behind me, but because standing at my side was not my father, as many had expected, but my grandfather. Some people smiled through tears, touched by the sight. Others exchanged curious looks, whispering among themselves. But as I walked forward, all I saw was Grandpa Henry's proud face and Daniel waiting at the altar with love in his eyes. I held my bouquet tight, every step echoing with the weight of years of disappointment transforming into something stronger, something beautiful. Each step wasn't just toward my future with Daniel. It was a silent declaration. I am not defined by who abandoned me. I am lifted by who chose me. When we reached the altar, Grandpa placed my hand gently in Daniel's. His voice was thick with emotion as he whispered, "Take good care of her, son. She deserves the world." Daniel nodded, his eyes glassy. "I promise, sir." Always the ceremony itself passed in a blur of vows, tears, and laughter. But the defining moment of that day wasn't just the I do. It was that aisle, that walk, that choice. Later, as the photographer clicked away, we posed for family pictures. Grandpa stood beside me, beaming, his arm wrapped proudly around my shoulders. Those photos would become more than just memories. They would become the spark that ignited my father's rage. Because while we celebrated, Dad was across town at Madison's birthday party, clinking glasses and smiling for social media. He had no idea what he was missing until the pictures started circulating online. A cousin uploaded one of the photos almost immediately. Me in my white dress, Grandpa by my side, both of us glowing with pride. The caption read, "The most beautiful moment, Grandpa Henry walking Harper down the aisle." Not a dry eye in the house. Within minutes, the image was everywhere in the family group chat. My aunt sent it, then my cousin, then friends started tagging me. And that's when Dad saw it. According to my mom, who later filled me in, he was sitting at Madison's party when his phone buzzed with the notification. He opened the picture, expecting to see me, maybe smiling nervously on my own. Instead, he saw his father standing proudly where he should have been. His face turned crimson. He slammed his drink down, startling everyone around him. "What the hell is this?" he barked, shoving the phone at anyone nearby. Guests fell silent as he ranted, his voice rising. She had him walk her down the aisle? My own father? Behind my back? Madison, uncomfortable with the sudden attention, muttered, "Dad, maybe you should calm down." "It's her wedding." "Don't tell me to calm down," he snapped. "She humiliated me, made me look like a fool." But here's the truth. I hadn't humiliated him, he had humiliated himself. Because when the world looked at those photos, they didn't see a daughter rejecting her father. They saw a granddaughter honoring the man who had always been there. While Dad fumed in anger, the comments on social media told a different story. "This is the sweetest thing I've ever seen. Every bride deserves someone who truly loves her at her side. What a beautiful moment, so much more meaningful than tradition." Back at the reception, I didn't even check my phone. I was too busy dancing, laughing, and finally breathing freely. For once, I wasn't obsessing over whether Dad approved or cared. I was surrounded by people who truly loved me, my husband, my family, my friends, and most of all, my grandfather. At one point, Grandpa pulled me aside, holding my hands. "Harper," he said softly, "don't let your father's anger weigh on you." Today was perfect. You were radiant, and I couldn't be prouder. I smiled, tears threatening to spill again. "Grandpa, you saved me today. You gave me the memory I always wanted." He shook his head. "No, sweetheart. You saved yourself. You chose love over disappointment. That was all you." In that moment, I realized something profound. My father might have been absent, but I wasn't incomplete. I had always had the love I needed. It just came from someone else. And though my father would never forgive me for what he saw as betrayal, I would never regret giving that honor to the man who truly deserved it. The day after my wedding, I woke up with my veil still tangled in my hair and the faint scent of roses lingering on my skin. My feet ached from dancing, my cheeks hurt from smiling, and my heart was full. But reality set in the moment I picked up my phone. Dozens of messages waited for me, some from family, some from friends, and a few from numbers I didn't even recognize. The photos of Grandpa Henry walking me down the aisle had spread like wildfire. People I hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out, telling me how beautiful the moment was, how they'd cried seeing the pictures. And then there were the messages from my father. They started polite. "Why would you embarrass me like that?" Then turned angry. "You had no right to do this without telling me. Everyone thinks I'm a bad father now." Finally, they became bitter. "Don't expect me to forgive this. You humiliated me in front of the whole family reading them." I felt a pang in my chest. A part of me wanted to argue back, to defend myself, to explain that he had chosen Madison long before I had chosen Grandpa. But as I stared at the screen, something shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to beg for his approval. Instead, I set the phone down, looked out the window at the sunlight streaming in, and smiled. Because while my father saw betrayal, I saw something entirely different. I saw love, strength, choice. That evening, my mom came over to help me sort through the leftover flowers and decorations. She moved slowly, as if carrying a weight she couldn't quite shake. Finally, she sat down across from me, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Harper," she began softly, "I need to say something. Your father was wrong. He's been wrong for a long time. And I'm sorry I didn't protect you from that." Her words caught me off guard. My mom rarely admitted fault, especially when it came to my dad. "Mom," I whispered. She shook her head, eyes glistening. "I've spent years keeping the peace, trying not to rock the boat. But I realize now that by staying quiet, I let him hurt you. And that's on me, too." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You've always been there in your own way, Mom. But you're right. Dad made his choices. And yesterday, I made mine." Her lips trembled into a small smile. "Your grandfather was glowing. I've never seen him so proud." I smiled back, my heart swelling. "Neither have I. That moment with him, it meant more than I can put into words." Later that week, Grandpa and I had coffee on his porch, just like we used to when I was in college. He leaned back in his chair, sipping slowly, watching me with those sharp, kind eyes. "You know," he said, "your father's still fuming. But that's his problem, not yours. You gave me the honor of a lifetime, Harper, and I'll carry that memory with me forever." I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "You deserved it, Grandpa. You've always been there. Always." He nodded. "That's what family is supposed to do. Show up, be present, titles don't matter. Actions do." His words sank deep into me. For so long, I had chased my father's love, believing I needed it to feel whole. But Grandpa was right. Family isn't just about who shares your blood. It's about who chooses you, who stands by you when it matters most. As the days passed, the storm with my father never calmed. He refused to speak to me directly, only sending bitter texts or complaining to relatives. Madison avoided the subject entirely, clearly uncomfortable with the fallout. But something incredible happened too. Relatives who had always tiptoed around Dad's favoritism finally started speaking up. An aunt told me, "We all saw how he treated you differently, Harper. What you did was brave." A cousin messaged me saying, "That moment with your grandpa was more touching than anything I've ever seen at a wedding." For once, the narrative wasn't controlled by my father's voice. It was shaped by truth, and as I looked through the wedding album weeks later, I didn't feel the sting of absence anymore. I felt pride. The photos weren't ruined, they were radiant. Every shot of Grandpa holding my arm, every smile, every tear, it was all proof that love had won that day. When I finally sat down to reflect, I realized something I want to share with anyone listening to my story. Sometimes, the people we think should love us the most don't know how. They choose their own egos, their own comforts, or their own favorites. And that hurts. It cuts deep. But love has a way of finding us in unexpected places. Sometimes it's a grandparent who never misses a moment, a friend who refuses to let us fall apart, a partner who sees us fully and loves us anyway. My father may never forgive me for letting Grandpa walk me down the aisle, but I'll never regret it, because in that single walk, I felt more love and pride than I had in 28 years of chasing his approval. And that's the lesson I want to leave with you. Don't measure your worth by who fails to show up. Measure it by who does, because those are the people who truly matter. So that was my story. Painful, yes, but also powerful, because it reminded me, and I hope it reminds you, that family isn't always about who's supposed to be there. It's about who actually shows up. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt overlooked or replaced, I want you to remember, you are not defined by the ones who failed you. You are lifted by the ones who love you. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Who has been your Grandpa Henry? Who stepped in and showed up for you when you needed them most? Share your story down in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences mean more to me than you know. And if you felt connected to this story, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find it. Share it with a friend who might need a reminder that love shows up in unexpected places. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories just like this one. Thank you for being here with me today. Until next time, take care of yourselves and hold close the people who truly matter.